Hey guys, tonight we step way back into a world of golden sunlight, endless deserts, and gods with animal heads judging your every move. You're about to become the most powerful person in ancient Egypt. Sounds great, right? Trust me, it's not. Because being a pharaoh isn't all gold thrones and fan-waving attendants. It's stress, heat, and enough pressure to turn even the Nile into a therapy session. Before we dive in, let me just say this. You probably wouldn't survive this life, not even a week. And honestly, that's okay. Neither would I, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Seriously, don't feel obligated. Ancient Egypt had enough people pretending. Also, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Drop it in the comments. I'm curious if you're listening to this under blazing daylight or in the soft quiet of midnight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Heat hits you first. It's heavy, like a linen blanket dipped in warm honey and draped over your entire body. The sunlight has that sharp, metallic shimmer that makes everything palace walls, temple spires, even the Nile in the distance, look like it's been brushed with molten gold. And there you are, in the center of it all, the living god of Egypt, you're standing on a platform that smells faintly of incense and fresh-cut lotus flowers. Priests in white linen hover around you like anxious swans, chanting words you're supposed to understand but honestly don't, at least not completely. Their voices rise and fall in an endless river of praise. You nod occasionally because that's what's expected. But inside your head, you're wondering why the crown feels like someone welded a bronze kettle to your skull. It's not just the crown, it's the makeup. Thick black coal lines your eyes so dramatically you could walk into a rock band photo shoot and fit right in. Your skin is slick with oils that smell like cinnamon and myrnice in theory, but combined with the desert heat, it feels like you've been basted for roasting. Everyone's watching. The high officials, their wives, the soldiers, the scribes. They look at you with this strange cocktail of awe and calculation, like they're worshiping you and simultaneously deciding whether they could overthrow you in the next decade. You wave slowly, like someone in a parade who's trying to look regal but not too sweaty. This is your coronation. The moment everyone says is glorious. It feels exhausting. The priests present the crook and flail symbols of power. They place them in your hands, and you try to hold them like you were born doing this. They're heavier than you expected. You wonder, briefly, if anyone would notice if you rested them for just 1 second. You don't, because you're a god? Now gods don't fumble. They call you Lord of the Two Lands, which sounds incredible until you realize that 2 lands means double the taxes, double the border problems, and double the angry neighbors. You smile anyway. It's part of the job. The air smells like burning resin and crushed flowers. The drums pound in slow, steady rhythms, and somewhere in the background, someone is shaking a sistrum, a little metal rattle that sounds like snake. Scales brushing stone. You imagine that noise echoing in your sleep later, because apparently, even divine rulers can't escape earworms. You glance at the Nile. It glitters in the distance like a lazy blue serpent. Beyond that, endless dunes stretch toward the horizon, shimmering in the heat. This is your kingdom. Or at least, that's the story. Really, you belong to it more than it belongs to you. You're bound to this throne until death and even after. That, you've got centuries of paperwork waiting in the afterlife. No pressure. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Right now, you're trying not to lock your knees and faint in front of thousands of people. Which, by the way, would be a PR nightmare. They'd carve it into stone. Future archaeologists would read about how you collapsed like a felled palm tree during your own coronation. Embarrassing. The musicians shift tempo, and the chanting softens. Someone lifts a golden basin filled with water from the Nile, and they pour it over your hands, murmuring words about purity and power. The water's cool for about half a second before it evaporates into the desert heat. Here's the thing nobody tells you. This ceremony is just the opening act. After this, there are feasts, parades, rituals, and speeches. Everyone wants to see you touch you, believe in you. Because if they stop believing, even for a heartbeat, the entire system wobbles like a badly stacked pyramid. You glance at the obelisks gleaming near the temple gates. Their shadows stretch long and thin like ink strokes on a golden page. They were here before you, and they'll still be here long after your name is forgotten. Historians still wonder if that was the point, to remind pharaohs that even stone outlasts kings. Someone steps forward, a priest with a shaved head, his skin gleaming in the sunlight like polished wood. He offers you a collar of gold and turquoise beads, each one catching the sun like a tiny captured star. You lower your head, and the weight settles against your collarbone. Add that to the tally of things pressing down on you today. The crowd erupts in cheers as the final chant rises, a low, thrumming sound that rolls through the palace like distant thunder. You raise the crook and flail in both hands, your arms aching, your face locked in that serene, godlike expression you've been practicing in the mirror for weeks. This is it, the beginning of your reign. The start of a life you didn't choose, but can't escape. And as the sun burns overhead and the desert wind whispers secrets across the stones, you realize something quietly horrifying. From this moment on, every choice you make ripples across a kingdom. Every breath you take belongs to history, and history, it has a long memory. You smile anyway, because that's what gods do. You're still standing there, under the scorching sun, smiling like a marble statue while your insides quietly scream. Asterisk, can we be done now? Spoiler, you cannot. The coronation is just the appetizer. The real feast? Endless ceremonies that feel like someone turned religious devotion into an endurance sport. The priests keep circling you like white-robed planets around a sweaty little sun. That's you, by the way. They chant more titles, so many titles. You thought being called Pharaoh was enough, but no. You're now Lord of the Two Lands, Son of Ra, the Good God, and a few others that sound impressive until you realize they all translate to the same thing. Don't mess this up. They smear oils on your forehead again. The smell is sweet and heady, a blend of frankincense, lotus, and something that feels vaguely medicinal like ancient Vicks VapoRub. You nod graciously, pretending this is an honor, while secretly calculating how much sweat your linen tunic can absorb before it becomes a towel. And the crowns. Oh, the crowns. You were hoping for one, right? Just a single, majestic, Instagram-worthy crown. But no. There's the red crown of Lower Egypt, the white crown of Upper Egypt. And when someone had the bright idea to unify the country, they created the double crown, basically stacking both crowns like a Dr. Seuss hat. It's heavy. It digs into your scalp, and you have to wear it like you're not fantasizing about inventing ancient Egypt's first lightweight crown technology. Everywhere you look, someone's holding a ceremonial object. Scepters, staffs, ankhs, crooks, flails. All symbols of eternal power, yes, but right now, they feel like props in a play you didn't audition for. The irony? You can't even put them down. Ever seen a toddler refuse to let go of their favorite toy? That's you, but instead of a teddy bear, it's an emblem of state authority. The musicians haven't stopped either. Drums thump like distant thunder. Harps tinkle. A flute plays this looping melody that's probably supposed to sound divine, but mostly makes you wonder if soundproof walls will ever be invented. Spoiler, not in your lifetime, and the people. Thousands of them. Farmers who've traveled for days, soldiers standing like statues, courtiers glittering like human jewelry. Displays. Their eyes fix on you as if they could drink divinity straight from your pores. Some look at you with devotion, others with envy. A few with the kind of calculating gaze that makes you want to double-check your food for poison later. You wave again, slow, majestic, the kind of wave that says, "Yes, I am chosen by the gods, but also, please send water immediately." Your arm aches from holding the crook and flail. You wonder if divine rulers can get tendinitis. Historians still wonder how Pharaoh stood through these marathons without collapsing. Maybe sheer terror, or the constant reminder that fainting in public would be chiseled into stone forever. The ritual moves indoors into the palace's inner hall. Shade at last. The air is cooler here, perfumed with incense that coils upward in lazy blue spirals. Massive columns rise like stone trees, their tops painted in bright lotus and papyrus designs. Sunlight slants through high windows, catching gold inlays and making the whole place shimmer like a jewelry box. They sit you on a throne, a literal slab of power. It's carved from ebony and gold, inlaid with lapis lazuli, and so stiff your lower back immediately files a complaint. The priests kneel, presenting scrolls covered in hieroglyphs, reciting oaths that sound both flattering and vaguely threatening. You nod solemnly, thinking, did I just agree to personally ensure the flooding of the Nile? Because I cannot control rivers, people. One priest raises a bowl filled with grain and murmurs blessings for prosperity. Another offers a live goose. It honks loudly because apparently even sacred birds hate formal ceremonies. You maintain your serene expression, resisting the urge to laugh. Or cry. Or both. They paint your name, your royal name, on a golden cartouche, the oval symbol of eternity. It feels like branding, like the universe just stamped you with a cosmic warranty, divinity included. No refunds, no exchanges, and then comes the big one, the formal proclamation. The high priest steps forward, his voice deep and resonant, echoing against the polished stone walls. He declares you the living Horus, the bridge between earth and sky, the beating heart of cosmic order itself. No pressure, right? Just uphold universal harmony and keep chaos at bay forever. Totally manageable. The crowd responds with a roar. The sound slams into you like a desert wind, hot and fierce. You raise your hands, smiling like you believe every word, while inside your brain a tiny voice whispers, what if I fail? What if I'm just a person? But here's the catch. You can't let them see that. Not the doubt, not the fear, not the overwhelming weight pressing down on you like the Great Pyramid itself. They need to believe you're a god, because if you're not, the whole structure wobbles. Taxes stop flowing. Armies hesitate. Priests start whispering. And so, you sit taller, crown digging into your scalp, lips curved in that perfect, serene smile. Outside, the Nile glitters under the afternoon sun, winding its eternal way toward the horizon. Time feels heavy here, like a river of stone. Everything about this moment tells you the same thing. This isn't a role you play. It's a life sentence carved in gold. You hear the drums again, low and steady, echoing through the palace like a second heartbeat. Yours. The kingdoms, both pounding in sync, both reminding you there's no turning back now. The cheering fades, the incense smoke thins, and for one brief, glorious moment, you think it's over. The ceremonies, the chanting, the goose incident. You imagine slipping off the crown, flopping onto a cool bed of linen, and maybe closing your eyes for 5 minutes. That's adorable, because the real work begins now. And it looks suspiciously like a mountain of papyrus scrolls stacked on a low wooden table in front of you. Congratulations, you are the divine ruler of Egypt, and your first act as a god on earth is paperwork. Endless, soul-crushing paperwork. Here's what no one mentions when they glamorize this job. Being a pharaoh is basically like running the world's most complicated customer service department. Everyone wants something from you. Everyone. High priest sends a scroll asking for more gold to expand a temple in your honor, which sounds flattering, except your treasury isn't bottomless. Then come the scribes, with neat little hieroglyphic reminders that the harvest numbers are low this season, which means grain shortages, which means unrest, which means... Let's not even go there yet. Next, there's a message about border skirmishes. Some nomadic group in the desert has decided that raiding Egyptian caravans is the hobby of the year. Wonderful. You make a mental note to deal with that, preferably before they start carving their names on your monuments in graffiti. And then, my favorite, letters from foreign rulers written in Akkadian on clay tablets, because apparently your job description includes being pen pals with half the ancient world. They're full of passive-aggressive compliments, like asterisk, Your Majesty, the sun rises on your beauty. But also, you still owe us 200 sacks of grain. Asterisk, so you sit there signing things with your royal seal like a very shiny middle manager. The crook and flail? Symbolic. The real instruments of your power are a reed pen and a pot of ink. The room is quiet except for the scratch of pens on papyrus and the occasional grunt from a scribe, who's been hunched over for hours. They're fast, these scribes' tiny machines, fueled by beer and bread, but even they can't keep up with the sheer avalanche of decisions you're expected to make. And the topics. Oh, the topics. One scroll asks for a ruling on a property dispute between two farmers in a village you'll never visit. Another wants you to set the official price of beer for the festival season. You blink at that one. Imagine being a god king and still having to regulate happy hour. You start to wonder how many decisions you'll make in a single lifetime. Hundreds? Thousands? Every one of them rippling outward like concentric circles in the Nile. One wrong call, and suddenly half. The country is muttering curses behind your back. It doesn't help that everyone talks in riddles. The priests phrase everything like a hymn. The scribes couch bad news in poetic metaphors. It's all asterisk. The flood is generous, but the grain jars sigh. Translation. You're heading for famine if you don't fix this. You glance out the window for a moment of escape. The courtyard is blazing with sunlight, white walls shimmering like polished ivory. Servants hurry past with trays of figs and jugs of beer for someone else's banquet, definitely not yours. You think about standing up, walking out, finding the Nile, and just floating away on a reed boat like a minor official who fakes his own disappearance. But you can't, because the next scroll is about taxes, and apparently, if you don't personally approve the rates, the economy collapses. The sheer weight of expectation presses down like a granite block. You're supposed to embody cosmic balance, which sounds poetic, but in reality, it means solving problems faster than they appear. Like some kind of ancient world whack-a-mole. Historians still debate how much of this work pharaohs actually did themselves. Did they really read every scroll? Did they delegate everything to viziers while sipping pomegranate wine by the pool? Maybe, but right now, in this story, you're doing it. Because you're the pharaoh and the vizier's off whispering with the high priest about whether the stars favor your reign. There's a knock at the door. You look up, already dreading what's next. It's a messenger, sweat streaking his linen tunic, bowing low before blurting out, "Your Majesty, the Nubian envoy has arrived demanding an audience." Great. Add international diplomacy to the to-do list. You sigh, pressing a hand to your forehead, smearing a little of that sacred oil. Divine ruler, yes. But right now, you feel like the CEO of Chaos Incorporated. And business is booming. And here's the kicker. This isn't a one-time thing. This is your life. Day after day, scroll after scroll, until one day they wrap you in linen and stick you in a tomb. And even then, people will probably still leave petitions in your burial chamber, hoping dead you has more free time than living. The incense has burned down to a wisp of smoke. The room smells like warm papyrus and the faint metallic tang of ink. Outside, the Nile keeps sliding past, slow and indifferent, like it knows something you don't. Maybe it does. Maybe it's laughing in its quiet riverway at all your frantic effort to hold the world together. You dip your pen in ink, press it to the papyrus, and keep writing. Because this kingdom doesn't run on divine will alone. It runs on decisions. And whether you like it or not, every one of them has your name stamped on it inside a perfect little cartouche forever. You'd think that with all this power, you'd at least get to be comfortable. Spoiler, you don't. You wake up the next morning, sunlight slanting across the polished limestone floor of your private chamber. The air smells faintly of lotus, blossoms, and the lingering smoke of last night's incense. For a brief second, you imagine spending the day lounging in nothing but the world's softest linen sheet, sipping pomegranate juice by the window, watching the Nile glitter under the sun. A simple dream, a beautiful dream. A dream that dies the moment your attendants march in with armfuls of fabric and enough gold to outfit a minor deity. Because, my friend, being Pharaoh means dressing the part, and the part is elaborate. First, they strip you down and rub your skin with oil, a glossy, fragrant sheen that smells like cinnamon, frankincense, and the faint edge of something herbal. Sounds luxurious, right? Except you're already sweating. It's barely sunrise and the desert air feels like someone left the oven door open. Next comes the linen. Crisp, fine, woven so tightly it practically glows. They wrap it around your waist, layer after layer, until your hips feel like they're swaddled in papyrus scrolls. Then they pleat it. Yes, pleats. Because apparently, being divine also means being fashionable. You stand there, arms slightly out, while three attendants adjust folds so sharp they could cut glass. And just when you think, okay, this isn't so bad, they bring out the jewelry. Oh, the jewelry. Gold collars so heavy you wonder if they count as strength training. Broad, shimmering bands inlaid with turquoise and carnelian, each one catching the light like a tiny sun. Bracelets, armlets, anklets, because why should any limb go unadorned? Then rings for every finger, some carved with protective symbols, others shaped like little scarabs that look cute but dig into your skin when you move. Finally, they crown you. Not just with any crown, but the double crown, the tall, awkward mashup of Upper and Lower Egypt's headdresses. It's like someone balanced a traffic cone on a bowling pin and said, yes, perfect, regal. And because that wasn't enough, they add a gold cobra that juts out from your forehead like a very angry fashion statement. You glance in a polished copper mirror. The reflection staring back at you is stunning, dazzling, absolutely godlike, and probably 2 minutes away from heat stroke. Because here's the truth, all this finery is heavy. It presses on your collarbone, digs into your scalp, constricts your ribs. And the makeup, oh yes, you're wearing makeup, is starting to smear in the corners of your eyes. Thick black coal lines that were meant to project divine authority are now threatening to become raccoon chic. Historians tell us that makeup served a purpose. It protected eyes from glare and infections. Which is great. Except nobody mentions the way it itches when sweat drips down your temples. You resist the urge to wipe your face because gods don't dab at their eyeliner. And then there's the leopard skin. Yes, someone thought this was a good idea. Drape the living god in an actual leopard pelt, because subtlety is for peasants. It hangs from your shoulder like a statement piece, and all you can think is, this must smell incredible in summer. By the time they finish, you feel less like a ruler and more like an over-decorated statue. Every step jingles faintly from gold anklets. Every gesture reminds you that lifting your arm now requires the core strength of a professional athlete. You step out into the palace courtyard, sunlight slamming into you like a golden hammer. The jewelry heats up instantly, pressing warm metal into your skin. Your crown feels like it's cooking your scalp. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you make a note. If anyone ever invents air conditioning, build them a temple dot, and yet you must. Smile. Glide across the polished flagstones like you're floating, not sweating through your royal tunic. People bow as you pass. Children throw lotus petals at your feet. You wave with serene majesty, silently praying none of your rings slip off and land in the fountain. Historians still wonder how much of this was daily wear versus ceremonial. Maybe you didn't do the full glitter armor every day. Maybe some mornings you got away with a simple kilt and a crown. But then again, Egypt ran on appearances, and appearances meant power. And power was heavy. By midday, the sun is high. And your linen is sticking in places linen should never stick. You dream of diving into the Nile, crown and all, just to feel something cool for once. Instead, you head to the audience hall for another round of petitions, your jewelry clinking. Softly, with every step a walking wind chime of authority. Being a god never looked this good, or this uncomfortable. You'd think, after surviving the ceremonies and strutting around like a golden peacock, you'd get a moment to breathe. Maybe sit in the garden, listen to a harp, watch the lotus blossoms float on a pool. But no, the truth is, there is no offstage when you're Pharaoh. You live in a world where privacy is as mythical as a polite camel. Everywhere you go, someone is watching. Court officials with eyes sharp as obsidian, priests lurking like pale ghosts in their linen robes, scribes ready to jot down your every word. Even the servants have ears that seem to stretch for miles. You cough in the morning. By lunch, there's a rumor that Rhea has abandoned you and the kingdom is doomed. You walk through the palace halls, and it's like moving through a human tide. They bow as you pass, slow, deliberate bows that brush the floor with foreheads. Their bodies fold like papyrus fans, but their eyes? They're peeking up just enough to read your mood. One wrong flicker of irritation, one tiny sigh, and the whisper mill spins faster than the Nile in flood season. The palace itself doesn't help. It's vast, echoing, designed to make you feel like a god and also like a museum exhibit that never closes. The ceilings soar overhead, painted with stars and suns. Columns rise like petrified trees, carved with images of gods who seem to be smirking at your predicament. Sunlight slices in through high windows, spotlighting you like you're on an eternal stage. And oh, the scrutiny at meals. You'd think eating would be simple. You, a plate of honey cakes, maybe a goblet of wine. But no, meals are theater. You sit on a raised dais, golden dishes spread before you, while an audience of courtiers watches every bite like it's a sacred ritual. They don't just care what you eat, they care how you eat it. Too fast? You seem greedy? Too slow? You seem weak. Heaven forbid you choke on a fig. They'll carve that scene in stone, trust me. Even your family watches. Your wives, your concubines, your ambitious children, they all hover like falcons, waiting for a sign, a glance, a hint of favoritism. You smile at one wife too long, and congratulations, you've just ignited a household Cold War. And the priests. Let's not forget them. They monitor you with the patience of vultures, making sure you perform every ritual perfectly. Miss one libation, one tiny sprinkle of water on a temple altar, and suddenly It's not just a bad day, it's cosmic chaos. Matt, the divine order is in jeopardy because you forgot to pour water on a statue. Imagine carrying that kind of stress. Historians still wonder how pharaohs balanced this relentless visibility. Did they find secret corners of the palace to breathe? Hidden gardens? Or did they just accept that their life was a permanent open scroll for the gods and humans alike? You tried to retreat just once. You slip away from the main hall through a side passage lined with lotus-painted walls and step into a small courtyard. The sun warms the paving stones and a fountain gurgles softly in the center. Bliss. You close your eyes, inhale the scent of blooming papyrus, and for a heartbeat, you feel like a person again. Then a servant appears, bowing low, whispering something about a delegation waiting in the audience chamber. You nod, serene as a sphinx, while inside you're screaming. So much for solitude. As you walk back, you realize the truth. Being pharaoh isn't a job. It's a performance. Every gesture, every word, every breath is a note in a hymn to power. Slip off key and the song collapses. So you keep smiling, keep walking, keep shining under the endless sun, while somewhere deep inside you dream of being invisible, just for one single day. And you wonder just briefly if any pharaoh ever managed that. By now, you've adjusted to the heat. Well, sort of. You've learned to glide across the palace halls like you're floating on air, even if every inch of you is sweating under a gold collar. And honestly, life in the palace looks incredible. Gleaming limestone walls, vast courtyards blooming with lotus and papyrus, pools so clear they mirror the blazing sky. If this isn't luxury, what is? But here's the truth no one carves into temple walls. The more golden your cage, the more dangerous it feels. Because in Egypt, power is a feast and someone is always hungry. You recline on a low couch in a shaded hall, a cool breeze filtering through a row of tall windows draped in linen. Servants pad silently across the polished floor, setting down platters of honey cakes, roasted duck glazed in date syrup, and bowls of figs so ripe they practically sigh when you touch them. It's opulence in edible form. The kind of spread that says, asterisk, you've made it. You are divine. You deserve this asterisk, except you can't enjoy a single bite. Not without wondering if someone sprinkled a little extra seasoning in the sauce, because that's the ugly secret of being pharaoh. Poison is the original influencer. It's trendy, effective, and very hard to detect in a dish already spiced with cinnamon and coriander. Every sip of wine, every bite of bread feels like a gamble. So you have food tasters, loyal servants who sample your meals before you touch them. They eat, they swallow, they wait. You watch. Everyone watches. The silence stretches like linen on a loom. And only when they're still breathing 5 minutes later do you take your first bite. Appetizing, isn't it? And food isn't the only threat. Your courtiers, those smiling, bowing figures in shimmering linen, are a constellation of ambitions orbiting your throne. Some just want a little land. Some want a bigger title. And some want to wear your crown. They flatter you, praise you, swear eternal loyalty while silently rehearsing your funeral rites. Historians still debate how paranoid pharaohs really were. But with all the palace intrigue, the jealous heirs, the rival priests, can you blame them? This isn't just politics. It's survival, and survival in gold sandals is still survival. You stroll through the gardens in the afternoon heat. Scent of lotus floats in the air, mingling with the sharper tang of resin from the incense burners stationed along the path. Attendants fan you with palm fronds the size of small boats. It looks serene, peaceful, a god among mortals. But behind the beauty, your mind runs like a startled gazelle. Asterisk, is my vizier loyal? Did that general bow too slowly this morning? Why did the high priest look at me like that during the offering ritual? Asterisk, even your bedroom feels suspect. The bed is carved from ebony, inlaid with ivory and gold, draped in linen so fine it could double as mist. Cushions piled high, oils perfumed with lotus and myrrh on a polished table. Everything whispers comfort. Everything screams danger. Because what if the servant who brings your evening drink has been bribed? What if the guard posted outside your door has a dagger hidden in his tunic? You start noticing patterns. The quiet conversations that stop when you enter a room. The way one wife suddenly takes a keen interest in your health. The slightly too innocent smile of that ambitious prince. Paranoia isn't a flaw here, it's a survival skill. And yet, you can't show it. Gods don't worry. Gods don't flinch. So, you walk through your palace like you own eternity, even as your heart beats hard under its golden cage. Night falls. The desert wind slips through the open windows, carrying a whisper of coolness and the faint, dry smell of sand. You lie back on your bed, staring at a ceiling painted with stars, pretending not to hear the scuff of sandals outside your door. Pretending not to imagine the taste of poison on your tongue. Luxury? Yes. But peace of mind? That was never part of the deal. You thought being Pharaoh meant reclining under canopies, sipping wine while poets compared you to Rhea. And yes, that's part of the job, but then there's the other part. Strapping on bronze armor and riding straight into the kind of dust. Storm that smells like blood and sweat, because war isn't optional. Not when some neighboring kingdom decides your gold mines look tempting. Not when trade routes get blocked by people who think tribute is a suggestion, not a rule. And definitely not when your own generals start hinting that glory is the only language. Soldiers understand that the day begins before dawn. The sky is still deep blue, stars clinging like scraps of silver, and the air is cool in that teasing way that says, asterisk, enjoy this while it lasts. Because in 3 hours, you'll be roasting, you're in your tent, a portable palace of linen. Dyed red and gold, sitting on a carved chair while attendants buckle plates of bronze onto your chest. The armor gleams in the flickering torchlight, and you can't help noticing it feels heavy and awkward. And really, really hot. They strap greaves to your legs, tighten leather straps until your ribs protest, and hand you a helmet shaped like something a blacksmith designed during a bad day. It pinches. It smells like sweat and metal. And the whole time, you're thinking, asterisk, didn't I hire an army so I wouldn't have to do this? Asterisk outside, the camp hums with tension. Chariots creak as wheels are checked and rechecked. Horses stamp the sandy ground, tossing their manes like they know what's coming. Soldiers murmur prayers to gods with falcon heads and lion faces. There. Voices low and urgent, like they're trying to bribe the universe. The air tastes like dust and anticipation. You climb into your chariot, a sleek, two-wheeled machine of wood and leather, painted with symbols meant to scare the enemy and maybe convince the gods to notice you. The horses snort, their breath puffing like little clouds in the cool dawn air. You grip the reins, pretending this feels natural. Truth? You've had training. Sure, but training in a palace courtyard isn't the same as steering into chaos. With arrows flying past your ears, historians still argue how often pharaohs actually fought in person. Some say it was all for show, that the ruler showed up for the victory parade and let the generals do the dirty work. Others point to carved reliefs, pharaoh smiting enemies, bow drawn mid-charge as proof they were in the thick of it. Maybe the truth is somewhere in between. Right now, you're definitely in the thick of it. The sun crawls over the horizon, painting the desert in molten gold. Heat seeps through your armor, sticky and relentless. Ahead, a dark line of figures stretches across the sand of the enemy. distant, silent, waiting. You can almost feel their eyes, sharp as flint, fixed on the tiny glint of your crown under that ridiculous helmet. Then it begins. Horns blare a raw, brassy wail that shreds the morning calm. Drums pound like a second heartbeat. Your horses surge forward, hooves hammering the ground, wheels biting into sand. The wind slaps your face, stinging with grit. Behind you, thousands of feet churn the earth into a storm of dust, swallowing the horizon in a swirling haze of gold and brown. Arrows whistle past, snapping like angry bees. You duck instinctively, gripping the reins so hard your knuckles ache. Your driver shouts something, but it's drowned in the roar, the clash of bronze on bronze, the shrieks of men, the screaming of horses. The air is a blur of heat and sound, and flying sand. You loose an arrow, mostly because not shooting feels worse than doing nothing. It arcs into the chaos, maybe it hits someone, maybe not. Does it matter? The real weapon here isn't your bow. It's your presence. Your soldiers see you standing tall in the chariot, sun glinting on gold, and they believe the gods are with them. That belief turns fear into fury. And fury wins wars, but belief doesn't make you invincible. A spear whistles past your shoulder, close enough to snag your linen sleeve. Your heart slams against your ribs. Sweat stings your eyes, turning the world into a glittering smear of bronze and blood. For one dizzy second, you imagine falling rolling under the hooves, trampled into anonymity. A forgotten body in the sand. You grit your teeth and straighten, forcing your spine into that impossible line of godlike calm. The kind they'll carve into temple walls later. Asterisk, the Great One, smiter of foreign lands, unshaken in battle. Asterisk, they won't carve the fear in your gut or the blister forming under your armor. They'll carve you as eternal, radiant, glorious. And maybe that's the trick. Maybe you fake it long enough, it becomes real. By sunset, the field is a mess of broken spears and silence. Smoke coils into the bruised sky, carrying the bitter tang of fire and sweat. Your soldiers cheer your name, voices raw, faces streaked with dust and blood. You raise your bow in a gesture that feels more exhausting than triumphant. Victory, they call it. You call it survival. Back in camp, they'll wash you with perfumed water, crown you in gold, and feast in your honor. They'll carve this day into stone for all eternity. And no one, not one scribe, not one priest will mention the truth. War looks terrible on you. You'd think, after risking your royal behind on the battlefield, you'd have earned some peace. Maybe a long bath in perfumed water, a platter of figs, and an early bedtime. But no, because in Egypt, the real power game doesn't always play. Out in the dust of war, it plays out in the shadow of temples. The priests are waiting. They always are. You return to the palace, muscles aching under your linen tunic, and before you can even peel off the gold collar that feels welded to your spine, there's a soft knock at the door. A scribe announces, with a kind of solemnity, usually reserved for funerals, asterisk, the high priest seeks an audience. Asterisk, of course he does. You meet him in a cool, incense-thick chamber lined with statues of gods, hawks, and jackals and ibis faces frozen in eternal judgment. Their inlaid eyes gleam in the flickering lamplight, and you swear they're following you. The high priest bows so low you wonder if he's going to kiss the floor, then straightens with that serene smile that says, asterisk, we need to talk. And you're not going to like it. Asterisk, because here's the thing. You're not just a king. You're a god, or at least, that's what the official PR campaign says. Son of Ra, living Horus, the whole divine package. Which sounds amazing until you realize what that actually means. You're on the hook for cosmic balance. Matt, the order of the universe depends on you. If the Nile floods too little, your fault. Too much, also your fault. crops fail. Plagues hit, meteors fall from the sky. Guess what? Clearly you annoyed a god. And the priests? They are the self-appointed referees of this cosmic game. They claim to speak the gods' language literally through chants and rituals older than the pyramids, which gives them leverage. Lots of it. Today, the high priest brings news with the gravity of a man announcing the end of the world. The oracles say the gods are displeased. His voice echoes against the painted walls, curling around you like smoke. You smile that serene Pharaoh smile, even as your stomach flips. Displeased gods mean big problems. Riots, famine, or worse, a priestly PR campaign that quietly undermines your rule. Historians still debate how much real power priests held versus pharaohs, but one thing's clear: they were rich. Filthy rich. Temples owned land, herds, ships, entire industries. Every offering, every tax exemption piled up in their coffers like desert sand. And if you tried to cut their privileges, let's just say the gods would suddenly send signs that your reign is in danger. You nod as the high priest drones on about a new festival to honor Amun, complete with sacrifices, processions, and surprise, a request for more gold. Always more gold. You agree, of course. What else can you do? Say no and risk being labeled the pharaoh who angered the gods. That's the kind of reputation that comes with uprisings, assassins, and unflattering hieroglyphs. So you play along. You attend ceremonies where they paint your face with ochre, crown you with flowers, and make you pour libations before towering statues that smell like resin and candle smoke. You chant hymns in a language so old it might as well be static. You smile, you bow, you pretend the weight of eternity doesn't press on your shoulders every time you kneel on the cool temple floor. And the politics. Oh, the politics. Temples aren't just religious centers, they're power hubs. The priests know every noble, every general, every merchant worth knowing. They whisper, they network, they spin alliances like spiderwebs, and you're supposed to hover above it all like a sun disk, glowing and untouchable, even while you're knee-deep in their schemes. You wonder sometimes who's really running Egypt, you, or the men in white linen murmuring prayers behind the sanctuary doors. Do they serve you, or do you serve the gods they claim to speak for? Night falls, and you leave the temple, the smell of incense clinging to your hair, the chants still echoing in your ears like a distant drumbeat. Above, the stars wheel in their perfect, indifferent patterns. You tilt your head back, staring at the glittering river of the Milky Way, and wonder, if you really are a god, why does this feel like someone else is pulling the strings? You thought surviving priests, politics, and the occasional war would be the hardest part. Adorable. Because nothing asterisk prepares you for the chaos lurking inside. Your own palace walls. Welcome to the royal household, a sprawling, sun-soaked labyrinth of courtyards, pillared halls, and enough bedrooms to house a small city. Sounds majestic, right? Sure, until you realize every single one of those rooms is a ticking time bomb of ambition, jealousy, and passive-aggressive side-eye. Here's the setup. You have a great royal wife. She's the official queen, the headline act, the Beyoncé of the palace. She wears the tall crown with the cobra, sits beside you at festivals, and is the only one who gets her name carved on temples next to yours. So far, so good, but then there are the others, the secondary wives, the concubines. Don't worry, they're just political alliances, additions to your personal harem. They come from noble families, foreign courts, and occasionally from someone deciding that giving you their daughter will earn them a tax break. The result? A glittering gallery of beautiful bored women with way too much time to plot each other's downfall. Picture it. Sun streaming through a colonnade, courtiers strolling in their crisp white linen, lotus blossoms floating in turquoise pools. Somewhere nearby, two royal wives are locked in a silent duel of smiles sharp enough to slice papyrus. One just accidentally complimented the other's wig for looking so natural. The other responds with, "Oh, darling, your jewelry is charming, so provincial." Historians still wonder how peaceful these households really were. The official art shows harmony wives lounging gracefully, children playing at their feet. But behind those painted smiles? Oh, you can bet it was more reality show than paradise. Because every wife wants her son to be the next Pharaoh. And the stakes? They're not just titles and land. They're temples, statues, whole chunks of eternity. You, meanwhile, are stuck playing referee. One day, the great wife accuses a concubine of using unholy charms to win your favor. The next, a foreign princess is sulking because someone gave her the smaller gold collar at a feast. And the whole time, you're smiling, nodding, murmuring things like asterisk. Of course, beloved, your beauty eclipses the sun, asterisk. While mentally wondering if faking your own death and moving to a fishing village is a viable option. And then, there are the children. So many children. Sons, daughters, more sons. Some from the great wife, others from the secondary wives, and all of them raised on the sweet nectar of entitlement. They strut through the palace gardens in tiny kilts, already, plotting like miniature politicians. One smiles too much when you hand him a dagger as a gift. Another spends a little too long staring at the throne during festivals. Cute. Terrifying, but cute? Sibling rivalries? Oh, they're Olympic level here. Toy chariots get accidentally broken. Tutors mysteriously switch loyalties. And every time you hear laughter echoing down a corridor, you wonder if someone's hiding a snake in someone else's bedchamber. You do your best to keep the peace. You throw lavish feasts with music and dancing, hoping the sight of golden trays piled with honey cakes will distract everyone from plotting your downfall, or each other's. You host festivals where your wives parade like living jewels, hoping the gods and the gossip stay on your side. But here's the thing, the palace isn't just a home. It's a political minefield disguised as luxury. Every smile hides a motive, every compliment is a veiled threat, and every bedtime prayer from your wives probably includes the words, asterisk, please let my son outlive all his brothers. Asterisk, you wander through the royal gardens at dusk, the air warm and sweet with the scent of lotus and myrrh. The fountains sparkle in the fading light, and laughter drifts from a distant hall high, tinkling, almost musical. But beneath it, you can hear the other sound, ambition, soft as a serpent in the reeds, coiling tighter every day. And you wonder, not for the first time, if conquering a foreign army is easier than keeping peace under your own roof. You've survived priests, politics, battles, and family drama. You've worn gold that could anchor a ship. You've smiled through festivals when your sandals were full of sand and your patience was thinner than papyrus. And through it all, you've projected eternal youth, divine perfection, and strength. But the truth? Your body is staging a rebellion, because being Pharaoh isn't just mentally exhausting, it's physically brutal. All those endless banquets with honey cakes, figs dripping in syrup, beer thick enough to chew, and wine flowing like the Nile in flood season, they add up. Combine that with a life spent sitting on gilded chairs, not plowing fields or rowing boats like the common folk, and suddenly your royal waistline starts looking less like a god's and more like a storage jar for bread dough. Let's talk teeth. Oh, the teeth. Egypt was the land of bread, glorious, abundant bread ground from wheat milled with stone tools. Which sounds lovely until you realize those stone particles turned your daily loaf into a low-key sanding block. Every bite you take slowly grinds your teeth down to sad little nubs. By middle age, you're chewing like a man whose dentist moved to Mesopotamia. Add in abscesses, infections, breath so bad that even the incense can't compete. Tumart never shows a pharaoh clutching his jaw in agony, but trust me, that scene happened. Then there's gout. Yes, gout, the disease of kings. Too much rich food, too much beer, too much lounging on ivory couches, and suddenly you're big. Toe feels like it's been cursed by Set himself. You hobble through the palace in sandals, pretending your limp is a sign of divine mystery, not swollen joints. Historians still argue about what actually killed some pharaohs, but the evidence doesn't paint a pretty picture. X-rays of mummies reveal arthritis in knees and spines, clogged arteries, dental abscesses, even bone fractures that never healed, right? Tutankhamun himself probably walked with a cane because his feet were a mess. You don't see that on temple. Walls dot, and then there's the heat. Gods, the heat. Your palace may be grand, but it's basically a limestone oven in summer. You sweat through layers of linen, trying to look serene while silently praying for a breeze that never comes. You dream of plunging into the Nile, crown and all, just to feel something cool for once. The physicians try. They really do. They smear honey on wounds, prescribe willow bark for pain, and chant spells while rubbing oils that smell like crushed herbs and optimism. Does it help? Maybe a little. But when your back aches like a collapsed obelisk and your teeth are screaming louder than a priest at sunrise, all the honey in Egypt feels like a joke. You start noticing little things. The way your fingers ache when you grip the crook and flail during ceremonies. The way your heart pounds like a temple drum after climbing one flight of stairs. The way sleep slips further from reach every night, no matter how many perfume pillows you pile under your head. And still, you have to look perfect, radiant, eternal. Nobody wants to worship a god who limps or wheezes during processions. So, you smear on more coal, sit up straighter on your throne, and let the sculptors carve you in flawless stone, broad-shouldered, youthful, serene. Because that image will outlast everything. The pain, the swelling, the teeth ground down to pebbles. You lie awake some nights, staring at the painted stars on your bedroom ceiling, feeling the throb in your temples, the heat in your joints, the weight of your own body pressing like a granite lid. And you wonder if immortality, at least the carved, idealized version of it, is worth the price of slowly falling apart while everyone bows and calls you a god. You'd think, after years of ruling, scheming, and sweating under golden crowns, you'd at least get to rest in peace. Simple, quiet, eternal. But this is ancient Egypt, my friend, and nothing here is simple. Not even death, because for you, death isn't an ending. It's a project. A massive, expensive, spiritually high-stakes project that starts years before your final breath. Forget retiring with a fishing rod and a nice view of the Nile. You're busy building an eternal real estate empire in stone. Let's start with the tomb. Oh, you're not just getting a cozy hole in the ground. You're getting the VIP suite of the afterlife. A chamber complex carved deep into desert cliffs or rising like a mountain of limestone on the horizon. Pyramids, valley tombs, secret shafts, the works. Why? Because your soul needs a place to hang out forever. And because your priests insist that if the burial isn't perfect, your afterlife will look less like paradise and more like being stuck in a cosmic waiting room with no magazines. The planning begins early. You sit with architects in a sunlit hall, their scrolls unrolling like papyrus snakes across the floor. They talk about corridors, false doors, hidden chambers. You nod thoughtfully while secretly wondering how much this is going to cost. Spoiler: everything. Entire quarries will be emptied for your walls. Entire villages will live and die hauling blocks for your eternal glory. And then there's the treasure. Statues, furniture, chariots, jars of honey and wine, piles of jewelry. That would make a modern influencer weep. All of it carefully listed, labeled, and tucked away because you guessed it, you need stuff in the afterlife. Comfort doesn't come cheap when eternity is on the line. Now, let's talk about mummification. Sounds elegant, right? A timeless process that transforms you into a serene, linen-wrapped vision of immortality. Accept the reality? It's intense. First, they remove your organs, most of them. Anyway, the brain, out through the nose with a hook. You'll never complain about a sinus infection again. The heart, the liver, the lungs, all carefully treated and stored in canopic jars guarded by miniature gods, with animal heads that look equal parts adorable and terrifying. Historians still debate some details. Did they always take out the heart? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Did the embalmers always know what they were doing? Definitely not. There are mummies out there who look like they went through a bad DIY project. After the organ extraction comes the drying. 40 days packed in natron, a natural salt that shrivels you into something resembling an overcooked raisin. Then the wrapping begins. Hundreds of yards of linen, layer after layer, soaked in resin until you're less human and more luxury candle. Finally, a mask of gold and lapis lazuli, a face that looks serene, divine, and absolutely nothing like the reality. Inside, and the ceremonies. Oh, the ceremonies. Priests in spotless linen chanting prayers older than the pyramids. Rituals with names like opening of the mouth, where they literally touch tools to your lips so you can eat and speak in the afterlife. Imagine lying there, unable to protest, while someone waves incense and mutters spells to make sure your soul doesn't get lost on its cosmic commute. You'd think all this effort guarantees peace, right? Wrong. Because the moment you're sealed in your tomb, the clock starts ticking, not on your soul, but on the patience of every tomb robber within 50 miles? That solid gold mask? That chest full of jewelry? It's basically an ancient open invitation for finders keepers. You can almost hear them sharpening their chisels before your sarcophagus is even cool, which is why your architects build false doors, hidden chambers, decoy passages that spiral into nothing. They plaster the walls with curses promising divine retribution to anyone who dares steal your stuff. Will it work? Maybe for a decade, a century if you're lucky. But 5,000 years later, let's be honest, you're in a museum gift shop replica while tourists snap selfies with your sarcophagus. You lie there, wrapped tight in linen and resin, surrounded by paintings of fields of reeds and endless feasts, hoping the magic works. Hoping the gates of the afterlife swing open and someone hands you a goblet of wine that isn't laced with poison this time. Hoping eternity feels less complicated than life. You made it, sort of. You've been wrapped, sealed, prayed over, and tucked into a tomb packed with more treasures than a luxury mall. Incense smoke curls through your last ceremony. Priests chant the final hymns, and your golden mask stares serenely into eternity. Finally, you can relax, right? Wrong? Welcome to the afterlife, where things get complicated. You expected a smooth journey, a gentle drift into paradise, maybe a soft harp soundtrack, an eternity of lying in lotus gardens with a chilled goblet of wine. Instead, the moment your soul slips free of your body, you're thrown into a spiritual obstacle course that makes palace politics look like a picnic. First stop, the Do-It, the Egyptian underworld. It's dark, it's winding, and it's filled with things that look like they belong in the nightmares of people who invented nightmares. Snakes spitting fire, crocodile-headed demons lurking in shadow, lakes of boiling water. The Do-It is basically an escape room designed by someone who hates you and owns a lot of knives. You sail through this cosmic chaos in a boat, guided by protective spells your priest so lovingly chanted while smearing you with resin. Hopefully, They pronounced everything right, because if they messed up a single word, congratulations, you're now fish food for a giant serpent named Apophis. But let's assume you make it through the gauntlet. You've dodged demons, survived rivers of fire, and clutched your amulets like your eternal life depends on them. Because it does. Now comes the big moment, the Hall of Two Truths. Picture it, a vast hall under a sky of stars, walls covered in hieroglyphs that flicker like living things. Torches blaze, casting long shadows across the polished floor. At the far end, a massive scale gleams in the firelight, its pans empty, waiting. On one side, the feather of Mat, goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic order. On the other, your heart. Yes, your heart. The same heart that thudded through every battle, every ceremony, every family argument over who gets the bigger villa. They weigh it, literally, against a feather. If it's light pure, unburdened by lies and sins, you pass. If it's heavy with guilt, say hello to Amit, the devourer, part crocodile, part lion, part hippo, all nightmare. She gulped down. Your heart like a snack, and poof, your soul ceases to exist. Eternity cancelled. And before you even get to the scale, you have to answer a quiz, not a short one. 42 questions to be exact, known as the negative confession. Basically, you stand there, trembling in your finest ghostly linen, and declare things like, I did not steal. I did not lie. I did not cause pain. I did not kill anyone who didn't really deserve it. Okay, that last part's implied. You recite these lines while 42 gods, yes, 42, stare at you from their thrones, all judgmental eyes and animal heads. You're sweating, which is impressive because you no longer have glands. You're trying to remember if that time you confiscated a rival's villa counts as not stealing. And the whole time, the scale waits. Silent, merciless. Historians still debate whether this ritual was meant literally or symbolically. Was it about morality, magic, bureaucratic flair? Whatever it was, it mattered, because to Egyptians, a soul that failed the test wasn't just punished. It was erased, gone, like you never existed. All those statues, all those carved reliefs showing you smiting enemies, meaningless dust if your heart tips the wrong way. Let's assume you pass, because otherwise, this bedtime story gets real. Short, the feather dips, the heart rises, and the gods nod. Thoth, the scribe of the divine courtroom, scratches your name in eternal ink. You exhale figuratively and step forward into the field of reeds. A paradise. A shimmering mirror. Of Egypt, but perfect. Fields that never fail. Rivers that never flood too high. The air sweet with lotus and myrrh. You'll spend eternity farming, but don't panic. You have Shabdi figurines, those little dolls packed in your tomb, programmed to do the work for you like ancient Roombas with hose. And so, after a lifetime of crowns and chaos, of sweat and silk and secrets, you finally get what you wanted all along: peace. Or something like it, unless historians still wonder if the Egyptians feared even this paradise might grow dull after a few thousand years. But that's a problem for future you. For now, you walk through fields of green under a sun that never burns, your heart as light as a feather, and try not to think about Amit lurking somewhere in your rearview mirror. So you passed the feather test. You dodged fire-spitting snakes, nailed the 42-question morality exam, and strolled into the field of reeds like a boss. Finally, you can sip that eternal wine and chill by a lotus pond forever, right? Well, not exactly. Because even in the afterlife, you can't shake one nagging thought. Asterisk, is someone messing with my stuff? Asterisk, welcome to the unspoken nightmare of every Divinavame. Pharaoh, the one thing your priests never carved on temple walls: tomb robbers. Those charming, enterprising souls who look at your carefully stocked eternal pantry and think, asterisk, you know what? That gold mask would look great in my cousin's living room. Asterisk, it starts small. A whisper on the wind. The faint chisel tap echoing through your sealed corridors. A draft where no draft should be. Then the sound grows a scraping, a cracking. The crumble of stone as someone pries open the doorway your architect swore was completely robber-proof. Spoiler, it's not. Picture it. Outside, the desert is silent, heat shimmering like molten glass. Inside your tomb, shadows dance on painted walls where you're forever depicted smiting enemies and presenting offerings to Ra. The air smells of resin, incense and secrets. Then thud. A slab shifts. A jagged beam of sunlight slices through. Darkness, blinding after centuries of silence, and in they come. Not gods, not priests, just desperate men with flickering oil lamps, faces smeared with sweat and sand. They mutter prayers as they move, not out of respect, but insurance. Because even thieves know the afterlife might be real, and angering a pharaoh? Bad idea. They work fast. Bronze chisels clink against stone. Fingers grope through linen wrappings. Gold glints like captured sunlight. Your jewelry, those wide collars inlaid with lapis and carnelian, the rings etched with your cartouche vanish into coarse linen sacks. Your furniture, your chariots, your board games, your jars of wine aged. For eternity, all looted. Gone. Historians know this wasn't rare. We found ancient papyri actual court records where tomb robbers were caught, interrogated, and confessed in sweaty detail. They talk about breaking seals, smashing coffins, melting down gold. Some even name names: carpenters, guards, priests, because, plot twist, half the time it's an inside job, and it's not just about greed. Egypt is a land where death equals eternity if your body and your name survive. So when thieves rip off your mask, hack open your coffin, or worst of all smash your face to pry out amulets, they're not just stealing your bling. They're messing with your cosmic Wi-Fi. If your body gets too damaged, your soul might lose signal. And then, poof, no eternal paradise. Just oblivion. You, floating somewhere between worlds, feel the vibrations of chaos as your tomb is gutted. You want to scream, to summon the wrath of Anubis, to curse these men so thoroughly their descendants develop inexplicable rashes. You can't. You're stuck, watching your eternal security plan unravel like a badly woven mat. Even the curses on your walls, those blood-chilling warnings, carved in bold hieroglyphs, don't scare them off. Death will come on swift wings to him who disturbs this tomb. Nice line, but hunger beats superstition 9 times out of 10. By the time they leave, your resting place looks like a war zone. The paintings peel under the heat of their torches. The air reeks of sweat and fear. Your treasures, the things meant to feed your soul for eternity, are gone. And you? You're lying there, linen brittle, resin cracked, wondering why you bothered spending 20 years building a tomb that couldn't survive 2 desperate guys with a crowbar. Later, priests might patch things up. Maybe they hide what's left of you in a secret cache, like they did in the Valley of the Kings during chaotic times. Maybe you get rewrapped, relabeled, and shoved in a communal tomb like last season's fashion. Regal, right? You'd think all this looting happened centuries after your death. But no, sometimes it started before the paint on your tomb walls was dry. That's how fragile eternity was. That's how fast glory could turn into a broken coffin and a very awkward afterlife conversation with Osiris. So now, as the sun sinks, over the endless dunes and shadows stretch across your shattered doorway, you lie there in eternal darkness. Haunted not by demons, but by the most human truth of all. Even gods can't take it with them. You'd think being dead wrapped in linen, sealed in stone, weighed, judged, And hopefully chilling in the field of reeds would buy you some peace. But note, eternity comes with a twist. People still talk about you. They talk a lot. And some of it? Brutal.c. You were a pharaoh, a living god. You ordered temples carved out of cliffs, statues the size of apartment buildings, pyramids that made foreign kings cry into their barley beer. You ruled armies, commanded floods, and signed off on feasts that burned through more bread than a modern buffet. In life, everyone bowed. Everyone praised. Nobody dared whisper a word against you. Fast forward a few centuries, and suddenly, your name is gossip fodder. Here's the thing. History in Egypt wasn't just about remembering. It was about writing yourself into existence. That's why your cartouche was everywhere. On temples. On obelisks. On the very stones of your tomb. Because names mattered. Names kept souls alive. And yet, that same obsession made you vulnerable. Enter the ultimate ancient Egyptian insult. Erasing your name. Imagine this. Centuries after your glorious reign, a new pharaoh takes the throne. Maybe he doesn't like you. Maybe he needs a little PR boost for his own legacy. Maybe he just hates your taste in obelisks. So what does he do? Orders your name chiseled off. Every monument you ever touched. Boom cartouche hacked out, statues defaced, reliefs gouged like someone rage quit your existence. It's the ancient equivalent of deleting your Instagram and burning your selfies. Historians still debate the motives behind these purges. Power politics? Religious reform? Personal vendettas? Probably all of the above. Look at Hatshepsut I. Of Egypt's greatest rulers, a queen who ruled like a king, commissioning colossal temples and obelisks that scraped the sky. After her death, successors went full unfollow and block, hammering out her name as if she'd never existed. Joke's on them, her obelisks outlived their pettiness. And then there's Akhenaten. Oh, Akhenaten. The pharaoh who tried to flip the script, ditching Egypt's entire pantheon for one sun-disk deity. In life, he was radical. In death, his memory was nuked from orbit. Priests smashed his statues, buried his city under sand, and acted like the whole experiment was a bad dream. For centuries, no one even remembered him until archaeologists came along, peeling back layers of spite like ancient gossip detectives. So you start to wonder, what about you? Will they honor your monuments, recite your hymns? Or will some future ruler decide you're bad for their brand and hack your name into oblivion? And even if they don't erase you, they might still judge you. Maybe they'll call you weak because a famine hit during your reign, never mind that the Nile had a mood swing and stopped flooding. Maybe they'll paint you as cruel, ambitious, soft, fanatical, or just plain unlucky. Maybe they'll blame you for everything from bad harvests to plagues of locusts. Because hindsight loves a scapegoat. And then, long after dynasties crumble and temples sink under sand, strangers from lands you never knew existed will dig you up. They'll unwrap your linen, x-ray your bones, measure your skull, and debate your private life under fluorescent lights. Was your jawline strong? Did you limp? Did you marry your sister? Okay, maybe don't answer that last one. They'll write books, make documentaries, shoot glossy museum exhibits with dramatic lighting. They'll turn your face into coffee mugs and tote bags. Tourists will shuffle past your coffin, whispering about your teeth, your knees, your diet. Your secrets, your body, becomes public property, displayed under glass while people take selfies with your mummified smile. You thought eternity meant divine glory. Turns out, it means becoming someone's vacation slideshow. As you lie in your stone bed, dust sifting through cracks above, you wonder which is worse, being erased from history, or being remembered in ways you never imagined. Here you are, After a lifetime of ruling and an eternity of being judged by gods, thieves, and tourists, we've reached the final stretch. The incense has burned out, the torches are cold, and all that's left is a question. Asterisk, asterisk, would you still want to be a pharaoh? Asterisk, asterisk on paper, it sounded amazing. Divine titles. Gold dripping off your neck. The power to make entire nations bow with a flick of your crook. Palaces blooming with gardens. Lotus pools shimmering under the sun. Musicians playing soft melodies as perfumed air drifts through colonnades. A throne so polished it could blind. Someone on a sunny day. Who wouldn't want that? But now you know the fine print. The pressure. The endless ceremonies where you stand like a mannequin under the sun until your spine starts plotting rebellion. The wars that bleed your treasury, dry and stain the desert red. The priests with their smug smiles and hands forever outstretched for offerings. The palace politics. Oh, those glorious evenings where two wives casually discuss who's going to bury the other first. You know about the heat, the insects, the aching bones that no perfumed oil can soothe. About the teeth ground down to stubs by bread that could double as sandpaper. About the headaches that throb under your golden crown, heavy as guilt. You've stared down famine and flood, pestilence and prophecy, every disaster neatly pinned to your divine resume. And death? Death wasn't a break, it was homework. Tombs to build, treasures to hoard, rituals to fund until your coffers wept. Because in Egypt, eternity wasn't free, it was the most expensive subscription plan in history. And even then, no guarantees. Tomb robbers, name-erasures, petty successors with chisels and grudges. You spent decades securing your afterlife only to end up in a glass case. Your regal nose smushed under fluorescent lighting while a child with an ice cream cone points and says, EW. Historians still argue about whether pharaohs were living. Gods or just humans with better marketing, maybe both. But now you know the truth that no scribe dared ink. Being divine was exhausting. Being eternal was terrifying. And the crown, oh, that beautiful cursed crown came with a weight no gold could measure. So, as we pull back from the desert, the Nile glittering like liquid silver in the last slant of sun, imagine yourself on that throne one last time. Feel the heat, the incense, the hum of 1,000 voices chanting your name. Feel the weight of history pressing like a temple stone. And ask yourself, would you still take the crown knowing the price? Or would you slip off the gold collar, trade the palace for a simple reed hut, and watch the river in peace, a nobody? With clean teeth and quiet nights? It's a question even the gods might not answer. Now, dim those painted stars on your bedroom ceiling. Let the whispers of ancient hymns fade and drift away from the noise, the heat, the crowns, the curses into a silence deeper than the tombs you've walked tonight. A silence soft as sand, endless as the desert sky. And if your heart feels a little lighter than a feather right now, well, that's good. That means you've made it. Now the doors of the tomb close behind you and the voices of priests fade into memory. The air is calm, still. The golden desert stretch forever, glowing under a sky dusted with silver stars. The Nile drifts far below, slow and patient, its dark waters whispering like silk over stone. Breathe in. Let the heat of the day dissolve. Let the weight of crowns and titles slip from your shoulders like old linen. There is no throne now, no priests with their solemn faces, no rivals lurking in shadowed halls. Just you and the sound of the wind, gliding across an endless ocean of sand. You walk barefoot, the grains cool underfoot, the horizon soft and blurred. The world feels lighter here, like a painting half finished, its colors melting into the quiet night. In the distance, palm fronds sway gently, their shadows stretching long and thin across the silvered dunes. You keep walking, slow, unhurried. each step carrying you further from noise, from fear, from memory itself. Above you, constellations shimmer like ancient jewels scattered carelessly across the sky. Orion's belt gleams, and for a moment, you imagine the gods watching from their celestial balconies, not with judgment, but with something like kindness. The wind brushes your skin like a whisper, telling you it's time to rest. So lie down. Now, feel the sand cradle you, warm and soft, as if the earth itself has opened its arms. Let your breathing slow, matching the gentle pulse of the river far below. With each breath, the night deepens, folds around you, and carries you into a stillness that feels eternal quiet, endless and safe. You are home now. End of script. Sweet dreams.